I didn't really understand all the details, but it seemed that when family was involved, things got complicated. Anyway, we were called back to the police station. The officer in charge led us into a room where a woman with brown hair was sitting, looking upset. Suddenly, she burst out angrily, "Stephen, how could you do this to your own family? I can't believe it." Daisy didn't seem guilty at all. In fact, she acted like she had done nothing wrong. She probably behaved the same way during questioning. According to her, she didn't break into the house to steal. She claimed she was only there to talk about the inheritance, but since we were never home, she had no choice but to break a window to get in. As for the money she took, she said she only needed it to stay somewhere nearby. In her mind, everything was our fault. What a selfish way to think. The fact that she resented me so much was scary. If I had run into her alone, who knows what could have happened? The thought made me shiver. Meanwhile, my husband, Stephen, and his sister were arguing. "You show up after all these years and act like you're still part of the family? Give me back my phone." "Fine, fine. Not like I could use it anyway. You locked it right away. You're so selfish. But hey, family is family, right? Mom and I cut ties with you a long time ago. You have no right to her inheritance." "Oh really? She left everything to some stranger's daughter instead of her own? Was she crazy or what?" "Stop saying such awful things," I shouted before I even realized it. I couldn't stand her talking like that about Donna. Daisy turned to me, annoyed. "Oh, so you're that Christian woman, huh? The one who stole my inheritance?" "I didn't steal anything. What are you talking about?" Daisy stepped closer, glaring at me. I hate to admit it, but her stare scared me. I couldn't find the right words to say. She seemed to notice, smirked, and laughed like she had won. The officer in the room cleared his throat and stepped in. "All right, everyone, let's calm down. This is clearly a family issue. Why don't you all discuss things first? We'll deal with the charges later." Later, we gathered at my in-laws' house to talk. The atmosphere was tense as we sat around a big table. Daisy spoke first. "If you give me my share of the inheritance, I'll forget about all the rude things you've said. You should be grateful for my generosity." She was still as arrogant as ever. Not surprising, people don't change overnight. She kept demanding, "Give me the inheritance, drop the charges." Of course, we refused. "You were disinherited, Daisy. You have no right to the money." "Fine, then at least give me some of your share." "That's ridiculous," my husband said, frustrated. I calmed him down and spoke to Daisy as calmly as I could. "Did you even read all of Donna's will? She mentioned you too." "I only care about the part about the inheritance. The rest is probably just her complaining about me." "No, Donna was worried about you. She regretted how things turned out. Then she should have left me the money." Daisy scoffed, clearly annoyed. My heart ached. She saw her own mother as nothing more than a source of money. "Donna didn't leave you anything because she knew money wouldn't change you," I said firmly. "I won't let someone like you take even a cent of it." "You've got some nerve, considering you're not even related to her by blood." "I don't want to hear that from someone who abandoned their own family." For a moment, Daisy was speechless. Then she narrowed her eyes and glared at me. It was a scary, hateful look, but this time, I didn't look away. "There's nothing more to say. Please leave," I said, staring back at her. Suddenly, Daisy lunged at me. Maybe she was furious, or maybe she was scared, but my husband and the others held her back. 10 minutes later, the police arrived and dragged her away. She kept shouting insults, but by the time she got into the patrol car, her shoulders had slumped. Later, we heard that Daisy went to prison. Our report had been accepted, and apparently, she was drowning in debt. That was why she was so desperate for Donna's money. But in the end, she had to face the consequences of her actions. She never understood what real love was. Back home, everything was finally peaceful again. As my husband lit incense in front of Donna's photo, he said, "Sarah, I was surprised to see you stand up to Daisy like that." "Well, I read Mom's will again," I admitted. I had reread it the night before our talk with Daisy. The will wasn't just about dividing money, it was full of Donna's emotions, almost like a letter. She had always cared about her daughter. Even in the end, she didn't hold on to any grudges. She only wanted us to be happy. She probably would have wanted to do more for Daisy, but she knew money wouldn't help. As I hugged my cardigan, I felt tears come to my eyes. Thinking about her, my husband noticed and tried to cheer me up. "Sarah, can you knit something for me too?" "Of course," I'll use the technique Mom taught me, I said, wiping my tears and smiling. We'll make good use of her inheritance. From that day on, I promised myself to live a happy life, for Donna's sake too. I didn't fully understand the situation, but it seemed that when a crime involved family, things became complicated. We were called back to the police station. The officer led us into a room where a woman with brown hair sat, pouting. Suddenly, she snapped, "Stephen, how could you do this to your own family? I can't believe it." Daisy, my husband's sister, didn't feel guilty at all. She acted like she had done nothing wrong. She claimed she didn't break into our house to steal, she just wanted to talk about the inheritance. Since we were never home, she had no choice but to break a window and go inside. As for the money she took, she said it was just to cover her stay nearby. In her mind, it was all our fault. Her selfish way of thinking scared me. If I had run into her alone, who knows what could have happened? The thought sent chills down my spine. Meanwhile, my husband, Stephen, was arguing with Daisy. "You have some nerve showing up after all these years and acting like family. Give me back my phone." Fine, take it. You locked it right away, so I couldn't even use it, just like you, always shutting me out. But family is family, isn't it? Mom and I cut ties with you long ago. That means you have no right to her inheritance. Oh really? So she left all her money to a stranger's daughter instead of her own? Was she out of her mind? Stop talking about her like that, I shouted before I could stop myself. I couldn't stand her insulting Donna. Daisy turned her glare on me. "You're that religious woman, aren't you? The one who stole my inheritance?" "I didn't steal anything. What do you mean?" Daisy stepped closer, her eyes locked on mine. I felt a wave of fear. She saw my hesitation, smirked, and laughed as if she had won. The police officer cleared his throat and spoke. "Everyone, calm down. Sounds like there are family issues here. Why don't you talk things through first? We'll discuss the charges later." Later, we all gathered at my in-laws' house. The air was tense as we sat around a large table. Daisy spoke first. "If you give me my share of the inheritance, I'll forget all the rude things you've said. You should be thankful for my generosity." She was as arrogant as ever. It was no surprise. People don't change overnight. Over and over, she kept demanding, "Give me the inheritance, drop the charges." But we had no intention of giving her anything. "We've told you many times, you were disinherited. You get nothing from Mom's estate. Then give me some of the money once you get it." "That's ridiculous," Stephen snapped. I calmed my husband and spoke firmly. "Daisy, did you even read all of Donna's will? There's a part about you too. I only care about the inheritance. The rest is probably just complaints about me." "No, Donna was worried about you. She regretted how things turned out. Then she should have left me money." Daisy scoffed, annoyed. My heart ached. She didn't see her mother as a person, only as a source of money. "Donna didn't leave you anything because she knew money wouldn't change you," I said. "I won't let someone like you have even a cent of her inheritance." "Oh, please, you're not even related to her by blood. And you abandoned your own family ties." For a moment, Daisy was speechless. Then she glared at me, her expression dark and angry. But this time, I didn't look away. "There's nothing more to say. Please leave," I told her firmly. Suddenly, Daisy lunged at me. Before she could reach me, my husband and the others held her back. 10 minutes later, the police arrived and took her away. She cursed at us the entire time, but by the time they put her in the car, she had given up, slumping in defeat. Later, we heard Daisy had gone to prison. Our report had been accepted, and she was charged for her crimes. Apparently, she owed a lot of money to loan sharks. That's why she was so desperate for Donna's inheritance. But none of that excused her actions. She had brought this on herself. Finally, our home was peaceful again. My husband lit incense in front of his mother's portrait. "Sarah, I was surprised at how bravely you stood up to her," he said. "It's because I read mother-in-law's will again. The night before, I had taken the time to read the will carefully. It wasn't just a legal document, it was filled with Donna's feelings, almost like a letter. Every word moved me. She had always loved her daughter. Despite everything, she never held a grudge, only wished for our happiness." I hugged my cardigan tightly, tears welling up as I thought about Donna. My husband, seeing my sadness, tried to lighten the mood. "Sarah, will you knit something for me too?" I wiped my tears and smiled. "Sure, I'll use the same knitting technique your mother did. We would honor Donna's memory by living well." That was the best way to thank her.